Welcome to Kairos Research Center podcast, Christian faith seeking understanding, intellectual witness, and spiritual renewal.
I mentioned earlier that while we often identify sexual identity initially as something psychological, but with the influence of thinkers like Wilhelm Reich and Marcuse, now sex has become political. And interestingly, in recent times, the whole ideology of transgenderism has become a political ideology. And you have now LGBT movement and other movements now been legitimized by what is called cultural Marxism or critical social theory. It's a very big subject. I will only give the barest ideas in it. According to critical social theory, society is premised on power, control, and manipulation. So everything is seen in terms of power relationship. Secondly, and this power is embedded in social structure. Secondly, if society is pervaded by power, then theory cannot be just theory. Theory must be committed to action. And there's a word called praxis, P-R-A-X-I-S. Praxis. Praxis is the implementation of critical social theory to effect social transformation. So, you cannot confront power with just theory. You have to confront it with change to overturn repressive social structure. Marx famously said in his thesis on Feuerbach, the philosophers have only interpreted the world in various ways. The point is to change it. So you have the critical theory in America now, in all the institutions of learning, or cultural Marxism. It has different shades of meaning, but I shall only just point out four of its defining ideas. One is what is called the social binary. Society is divided into dominant oppressor group and subordinate victim group, whether it's based on race or class or gender or sexuality or immigration or religion. So you have a cluster of people who are being oppressed. And to bring all this cluster of oppression is the phrase intersectionality. The key word is intersectionality. I will explain it later. The intersection of all classes of oppression. Secondly, the idea of hegemonic power. Hegemony is just a reference of how one group dominates the other, and not only dominates, it legitimizes the domination by imposing ideas onto the dominated group, so that the dominated group just accept it passively as natural and intuitive, so there's no challenge to their dominance. Then the word lived experience. You will find in the writings a lot of references to the lived experience. What is lived? The lived experience of the minority and oppressed groups must have priority over the objective evidence and reason. You can come to the oppressed group and try to explain to the oppressed group, well, poverty is because of negligence and self-responsibility and purposeful whatever goes in your life. No, my lived experience is different from whatever theory and explanation you gave. The lived experience trumps any objective evidence and must have the final say beyond social analysis. So in a sense, you cannot argue with people coming from this so-called oppressed group because their lived experience trumps all facts and logic. And finally, there is the idea of social justice. You must dismantle all systems. And for our purpose, therefore, you may say that if sexual differences is binary and oppressive, therefore, social justice means overturning of this sexual binary system. Now remember, this is the approach. The keyword is not just theory, but praxis. Theory must lead to activism. And if sexual binary is wrong, every structure that is based on it must be overturned. I will give only one case study of how politics of sex has become the way to define truth. I am referring to this book, Homosexuality and the Politics of Truth, Jeffrey Satinova. And he gives, based on another study, how homosexual activism can force the American Psychological Association to redefine the meaning of homosexuality. So beginning in, let me just tell you, I give this example as elaborate as it is to tell us that we are not dealing with theory, we're dealing with activism. You may say aggressive activism, and see the LGBT movement is not just a personal struggle, but it is a highly effective and aggressive ideological movement committed to transformation of structures in society. In 1963, the New York Academy of Medicine reported that homosexuality is indeed an illness. 63, yeah? The homosexual is an emotionally disturbed individual who has not acquired the normal capacity to develop satisfying heterosexual relations. Or some homosexuals have gone beyond the plane of defensiveness and now advocate deviancy. Deviancy is a desirable and noble way of life. So this is the traditional interpretation. But this trigger, you may say, coordinated action from the other side. So the homosexual activist now wants to change the definition, beginning with the authoritative American Psychiatric Association. And of course, this is done through the AGM. So what they do is now, let's go to the AGM and push our way through. In 1970, when the APA was going to move, the homosexual faction decided that they would disrupt all the AGMs until a paper is allowed to present which will accept homosexuality. And whoever was presenting papers that with the traditional view of homosexuality will be harassed and shouted down. So, and they justify their action by saying APA is a social institution and not a scientific institution. And then in 71, the threats were extended to any sponsors against anyone who would not accept their understanding of homosexuality. And so the APA said, okay, we allow a special panel on homosexuality. But despite that, the activism still carry on. The activists still carry on. In 1973, the APA conceded to the demands and allow the definition of homosexuality to be decided by voting members rather than by special study committees. So now the APA has succumbed to the activist demand. We should let a vote be taken place rather than just let this special study committee decide what is homosexuality. So APA yielded to all this activism and pressure and disruption. So they allow the votes. They send out 30,000 letters. If you belong to professional bodies like even the legal body, you notice most members are not active one. They send out 30,000 letters, of which 1/3 responded, and then they managed to get the majority number. So what happened is, out of the 1/3 that responded with the majority, 70% disagree with the decision was just ignored by. So you notice that? Bayer's right, huh? The result was not the conclusion based upon approximation of scientific truth as dictated by reason, but was instead an action demanded by the ideological tempo of the age, of the times. So just not next time when somebody cites you APA or whatever that normalizes homosexuality, just remember the whole process is achieved not by scientific study but by political action in the AGMs, in the gay lobbyists. So what began in 73, they succeeded. As usual, activism is never content with its victory. It always extends its boundaries, its victories further. In 1992, the gay lobbyists got the National Association of Social Workers to declare against reparative therapy. So now you cannot even offer therapy to LGBT. And so now you notice that since then, the LGBT movement has taken over the education institution, entertainment industry, corporation, and then promotion and acceptance of LGBT lifestyle must be accepted or face legal action. So you know of famous cases in the US, unlike Malaysia, where I would say LGBT people are oppressed by political laws. I will say that. In America, it's the other way around. The LGBT movement oppresses those who disagree with them. You know the bakers who say, no, I cannot bake this homosexual marriage, get lawsuit by the state government. Photographer who say, I don't want to take your business to be a photographer for occasion in the homosexual marriage, also cannot. web designer, sports, everyone who disagree is now threatened with a legal lawsuit until you're bankrupt. Pastors have also been threatened with imprisonment in Canada. Comply with LGBT demand or face dire consequences. So you notice now what has changed over the years? The LGBT is not just a life choice, it is an aggressive ideology which seeks power to impose its ideas on the basis of social policy to reshape social reality. Now, no money, no talk. LGBT movement is very powerful and effective precisely because it's super well funded. It's efficiently organized. Many of its members are very highly educated. You may say nice people in other ways. But they are collectively an aggressive movement, not only seeking to change society, but specifically targeting the church. Agree with us, or we will find ways to sue you and drive you out of the public square. So in a sense, very ironically, you may say, every society has its sins. Every culture is fallen with ups and downs. But it's arguable in the West, the signature sin that is in rebellion against God nowadays is arguably the LGBT movement. So I think this may not be acceptable to people, but I am making this judgment based on my understanding of the Bible. And just to summarize things, I will just give some short comments. What do I do? What books do I read? I will start with the simplest. There are some good books published by Singapore Council of Churches. You should check their website to find. This is a simple book by Kevin DeYoung. What does the Bible really say about homosexuality? Very thin book lah. So, but very, very, very readable. Then, if you want something a bit more local, I would recommend a good book from Singapore, Homosexuality, the Bible and the Church, by the National Council of Churches of Singapore. I would highly recommend this book. It's very comprehensive and readable. So, and I assume it's affordable. But if you really want a thick book, The Authority on This, Robert Gagnon, The Bible and Homosexual Practice. So this is the very big book on that. And well, I will put one more on the social scientific movement. I've already mentioned Homosexuality by Stan Jones and Mark Yarhouse. Homosexuality, the use of scientific research in the church moral debate. And finally, in the last part, when I was talking about the social philosophical movement behind the rise of the LGBT sexual revolution, I would recommend this book, The Rise and Triumph of the Modern Self. So I have Carl Trueman by Crossway. Can't be too expensive if it's by Crossway. And here's a simplified book, Strange New World or something like that. You can look for it. I missed out one book called Straight and Gay, a very old book, Compassion and Clarity in the Homosexual Debate by Thomas Kimmett. An old book but very readable by IVP. So these are books that I recommend. At the end of the day, we go back to the Bible, and our concern is not to simply challenge people. Our concern is not to simply find fault with people. Our concern is that because the church is undergoing so much pressure from the LGBT sexual revolution, and because our children in Malaysia, we think, are actually influenced, especially by the media and entertainment industry. And when many of our children are sent to America to study, I notice even children from good Christian parents somehow become very sympathetic to the LGBT movement and refuse to talk better when they know their parents disagree with them. So it's not a theoretical matter. It's a matter of concern, and as of course, at the end of the day, I may want to quote Hebrews chapter 12. Strive for peace with everyone, for the holiness without which no one will see the Lord. So the challenge is we must speak and courageously declare the truth of biblical teaching and humbly seek to share the wholeness found in God's grace that brings liberation and substantial healing to our brokenness. So we speak not as self-righteous people, but as fellow broken people who have found grace in God. May God bless you all.